Hi, it's Emily Leiphart of Art from the Heart, and in this video I'm sharing a shaker card made with a stamp and die set called Filled with Love, a joint collaboration between Mama Elephant and Simon Says Stamp. This set can be purchased together or individually, only at Simon Says Stamp. You can find the supply links below. To create the shaker card, I'm going to use the jar die and a piece of acetate which I've cut to 3 inches by 4 inches. It's just big enough to accommodate the adhesive which will go around it, securing it to the front panel of the card. The first thing I'm going to do is stamp the jar outline onto the acetate using Stays-On Jet Black ink. I'll set that aside to dry while I work on other parts of the card. I'm going to fill the jar with all of the solid hearts. There are 5 hearts in the set and I'd like to stamp 2 of each, but I'm going to die cut a dozen hearts to have extras just in case. Once all the hearts are cut out, I grab Memento Luxe inks in Angel Pink, Rosebud, Love Letter, and Rhubarb stock. I stamp Be Mine in Angel Pink, Kiss Me in Rosebud, True Love in Love Letter, and Cutie Pie in Rhubarb stock. I also stamp Love You in Rosebud and Be Mine a second time in Love Letter. Next, I arrange the hearts inside the jar die to visualize whether there are enough of them. You can get a better idea of how it looks when I hold the stamped acetate piece over top. Next, I'm going to select some pattern papers from Echo Park's Head Over Heels 6x6 paper pad. I'm going to use an ombre gray paper for the background. I move all the pieces over to make sure I like how it looks. Then I try a couple of different patterns for the lid, but I'm not happy with them, so I'll go back to that later and move on to the next step. I'm going to use an XO pattern for the base, which you can imagine to be a tablecloth or counter for the jar to sit on. I place the jar lid on top to determine the size for the panel. After trimming the panel, I adhere it to the ombre background. Next, I'm going to use the jar die to create the window for the acetate. I slide the die down so the cutting edge on the bottom of the jar hits the XO panel. This will die cut the jar exactly where I want it. I tape down the die with washi tape and run it through my Big Shot. I'd like to have another pattern in the background, so I'm testing the blue harlequin pattern. After I decide I like the way it looks with the other patterns, I cut a 3" by 4" piece to coordinate with the piece of acetate. You'll see later the reason for this. Now I'm going to adhere the acetate to the back of the ombre panel. I grab a sheet of white paper so I can see where the stamp is relative to the die cut edges. I want it to be really secure, so I use score tape. This tape is so sticky, so you need to be careful and make sure that everything is perfectly lined up before pushing it down. Next, I measure the length of the foam tape, which is going to provide the depth and containment for the shaker pieces. Once these pieces are in place, I carefully clean the acetate to remove any dust or fingerprints, because the last thing you want is unsightly marks on the inside of the card after it has been fully assembled. To provide some depth in the jar, where some of the hearts will look like they're closer to the front of the jar than others, I'm going to use micro glue dots to secure sequins to the backs of half the hearts. This will give them just enough height so that they can still move around inside the shaker. Once that's done, I hold the back panel on temporarily to see how it looks. I decide that the jar looks too empty, so I'm going to add sequins to the back of the remaining hearts. This will help the jar appear more full. I decided I wanted to add some large sequins to the jar. These silver and pale pink sequins are from Studio Calico's Atlantic Sequin Pack. That looks so much better, and I love the mix of hearts and sequins. Finally, I decided that a silver glimmer lid would be perfect for the jar. Now I want to add a tag to that lid. I'm going to use the tag die and stamp one of the cute little sentiments on it. I've die cut the tag twice from patterned paper so that they can be layered together. I'm going to stamp Love You More on the tag with VersaFine Onyx black ink. I attach the tags together with foam tape and use Leiphart lemonade cord to tie the tags to the lid. I chose this string because the ombre pinks coordinated perfectly with the hearts. When assembling the card, the front panel is face down so that the pieces can be contained by the foam tape. I have to remember to place all of the hearts and sequins in the opposite direction that I want them to appear on the finished card. I make sure that the sequins are cup side down since I want to see the cup side from the front of the card. Once everything is inside the window, I adhere the blue panel to the back of the jar. The reason why I cut this panel the same size as the acetate is so I can see exactly where it needs to go. All I have to do is line it up with the edges of the acetate. Now I can adhere foam tape to the edges of this entire panel so it can be attached to a card base. Since this shaker panel is made up of patterned paper, I want a very sturdy card base. I've chosen Basil Marshmallow, which is a heavyweight cardstock. Once the panel is secure, I can adhere the lid to the jar. I fiddle with the angle a bit to make sure it's just right. Now my card is done. Please refer to the supply links below if you're interested in any of the products I used in this video. You can also visit my blog for stills and more information. Thanks so much for watching.